The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Monday, 6th of April.
The FujiCast.
Welcome to the FujiCast, our daily photographic community podcast now, it seems. Not just about Fuji, it's about people that just happen to love photography. And is this the third week, Kev, of doing this daily?
I don't know, it feels about 11 years.
Week 4. Are we ever going to come out again? Please let us out. What did we do wrong?
Is it 3 weeks? Yeah, it might be.
About 3 weeks. I tell you what, we are very, very close, or we'll hit this week our 250,000th download.
Wow.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very good.
Very, very proud of that.
That's more than like Status Quo got, I would imagine, on their first record.
They weren't downloading in those days, Grandad. Yeah, I once when we had a band at school, actually, and I was in a sort of a status when they were hip in a Status Quo-esque band. I was the drummer.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't look like a drummer, I have to say.
Well, I couldn't play drums, to be honest. But they, Alistair, my best mate at the time, I haven't seen Alistair for years. I've taken him off the Christmas card list about 2 decades ago. But they needed a drummer, and he said, well, here's a couple of drumsticks, just hit those pots and pans or whatever. So that was the drummer. We had a grand total of 1 gig to our parents.
That's very cool, though. I'd always wanted to be in a boy band. I thought I'd make a good boy band person when I was younger.
So, comparing to Take That, which one of Take That would you have been?
Oh, probably the moody one, the one without any of this talent. That was one of them, wasn't it? The one that got arrested for jumping over stealing train tickets or something.
What? Take That? I don't think so. They're far too...
It was the grumpy one.
They're too clean living.
Something to do with lemons. Was it lemons?
Jason Orange.
No. Oh, with him. Yeah, that's him.
Jason Lemon.
Lemon.
I don't know if he... No, I think for the balance here, I think Orange was a good lad.
Or was it Howard the Duck?
Let's get this right, because it's quite important, isn't it, lawyer?
Warning.
Yes.
I will find it. It was definitely one of them. Anyway, my band was going to be called Kevin and the Mallets.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And I was going to be the lead grumpy singer. Yeah, with my clarinet, because that's the only thing I can play.
Yeah, I'm not sure boy band with clarinet. I mean, got to love a clarinet, but honestly, I'm not sure it's a boy band kind of instrument. Is it?
That fella who, what's his name? The guy who used to stand on one leg and play a flute.
Do you mean Fleetwood Mac?
No.
Mick Fleetwood. Well, he did. He did stand on.
Fleetwood. You're thinking of Fleetwood Mac.
Fleetwood Mac.
No. Hang on. It was. He's a proper rock star. He used to stand on one leg and play a flute. Stand on one leg and play a flute.
Well, we used to play Fleetwood Mac a lot on the radio station. I always used to get it the wrong way around. So instead of Big Love by Fleetwood Mac, I always used to say it's Big Mac by Fleetwood Love.
Jethro Tull.
Yes.
Jethro Tull. Yeah. Well, anyway, he lives by us.
Does he?
And my mate, Matt the postman, we call him Postman Matt. He delivers his letters.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Does he ever look inside the letters? No, of course he doesn't, because that's against the law.
No comment.
No.
Yeah, so he lives by us. So you can be a very famous rock star and just play the flute, and you don't have to call yourself Fleetwood Mac.
Oh my God, they get worse. Right, let's open up the email and go through a couple of your questions here. Jason Cox. Firstly, I'd like to, this is not so much a question but a suggestion. Pass on the thanks to you and Kev for answering my question regarding storage. Yada yada yada. He was the chap that had, do you remember his mate, Pizer, back in Australia?
Oh, Pizer, yeah, Pizer!
Pizer heard his mention, and he was over the moon about it, and he's now a new listener.
Good.
Secondly, I've been thinking a lot about uncertain times that we all face at the moment, discussion around mental health that you guys have been bringing to light, and I've an idea that I thought might be worth pursuing. The idea was to look at creating an online photography exhibition website. Images could be donated by members of your community. It would then be great, once the dust has settled, to hold a physical exhibition. All proceeds raised could be donated to the NHS or charity. This would benefit the community's mental health, as they'll be contributing to a greater cause. Basically a win-win. I agree with him. I think there's a lot of things like that happening, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. There are. I think there's loads of those kinds of things happening. I'm not sure how it could kind of manifest itself in an individual capacity. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people doing a lot of good right now, and yeah, that's a good thing for sure.
So we're going to put that in the good idea pile. If anybody wants to make contact with Jason Cox, he's in the good idea pile just down there.
Other thing we were going to mention, by the way, the about Alistair, because that's what put me onto Jethro Tull and boy bands and stuff. You mentioned your mate Alistair.
Oh, right, Alistair.
Who you never sent Christmas cards to anymore.
No.
I thought, no, not Alistair. Alistair's our friend, and he's doing something, isn't he? Online mentoring or something for
Alistair Freeman.
Next to pennies or whatever. So yeah, to kind of help people through the bits and pieces. If you want to get hold of Alistair Freeman, type his name into Google. Do not type in Jethro Tull.
Alistair is Alister. Is one of those Alistairs. Alistair Freeman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, friend of the show.
Keith Martin, hello to you both. Firstly, an enormous thank you for everything you're doing. The podcast has become the highlight of my day. A brief interlude from the craziness outside this window. And a question. Luminar editing software. Have you had any experience? I cancelled my Adobe package because I didn't want the subscription costs, and it seemed like a good alternative. However, the 3-month lockdown may not be enough for me to finish the edit I'm currently working on. Do you have any alternative recommendations? From Keith Martin.
I'm guessing that Luminar's not a very fast workflow by the sounds of that.
No.
Where he said that.
No, I haven't had any experience of that.
No, I have. I've been emailed by them a few times to say, would you like to have a look at it and stuff, and I haven't. I have to say though, I've heard some very, very good things about it, but no, I haven't, so I can't really comment, I'm afraid. But there are people using it.
I managed to get my subscription held for a couple of months on Adobe, and I know.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
How did you do that?
I asked. I said during this Corona time, and I went on the chat facility, and they said, "Yep, no worries at all." I got that advice from Anna McCarthy. She sent that advice in. So as I say, I'm not sure they're still doing it, but they were for a little while anyway. Patrick Connor, hi guys, listening again yesterday, another belter. Feel that perhaps a little clarification regarding the elusive F key is in order. So he's just responding to obviously what you were talking about yesterday. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Capture One can use the F key to go into full screen, but you have to tell it first, Kev. Click on Edit, then Edit Keyboard Shortcuts on the drop-down menu. This brings up the keyboard shortcuts dialog. Click on View, and you get a list of things you can assign keystrokes. By default, full screen, I think. Alt, Control, F. Double click in the box next to full screen and type in F. No? Have you tried it?
No, tried it, yeah. And because full screen, it seems to Capture One means basically getting rid of the window bars around the edge, the kind of borders. So when you do full screen on Windows Capture One, it still leaves all of the editing panels and things like that on the side. It just gets rid of the chrome, if you like, around the outside.
Right.
And literally the only way, and I've looked it up so many times, and I would be very happy if somebody could prove me wrong, but it seems in all the forums and stuff like that it is this way. Wow. The only way you can get your image to just show on the screen, just the image, nothing else, nothing else whatsoever apart from your image, is to go into the slideshow view, and even then, it still shows all the arrows and pause buttons and everything.
Let's put that one to bed then. It clearly doesn't work.
Only on Windows, though. I think it works perfectly fine on Mac.
Well, this is something you could do with your free time, Kev. You could get a Mac and learn how to use a Mac.
Hang on. I think there's something far more important I've got.
No, please, no!
I've got to go and count the blades of grass in the garden.
Yeah. All right, we'll put that one to bed as well then. Here's a great name. This is the kind of name that if you use it would get you a definite upgrade on a flight every single time. Like Doctor. I think doctors always get upgrades, don't they, on flights? And so they should now. But a doctor apparently gets you an upgrade, and also will always get you into a restaurant, a doctor. If somebody who is a doctor, let me know if this is true. But I've heard that being or a lord, and actually a friend of mine, Ian Govia, bought himself a plot of land somewhere. I don't know whether it was in Scotland or whether it was just south of the border. Just so he could a plot of land, he was able to legally assume the title of Lord, and Lord Govia always gets upgrades and always gets top places in restaurants. Yeah, there was Lord Kevin Mullins. Anyway, here's the name: Wallace Shackleton.
Oh yeah,
that is
he's gonna go far, isn't he?
Wallace Shackleton is like the name to have.
Yeah.
Anyway, blah, blah, blah-de-blah. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one, he says. I love listening to your podcast. Flattery bit done. After a weekend of self-isolation, I was crawling up the walls. So I started going out for a walk, taking my hopefully legally and at a safe distance, my X Pro 1 or XT3 with me. I'm really lucky living out of town, so social isolation isn't that much of a problem. The XT3, you'll like this, the XT3 is relatively new, so taking it with me is actually a good way to get to know how the various functions work. While the X Pro 1 is like going down the pub with an old friend. Another benefit is that I've actually found new inspiration in some really off-the-wall subjects like a motorway road report or stir-crazy nature notes. About the only benefit of this isolation is it's enabled me to catch up on a 6-month photo backlog. Anyway, from Wallace Shackleton in Kinross. Yeah, that's a...
No, I like Kinross. Nice over there.
Yeah, I haven't been to Scotland for so long.
Yeah.
I think when was the last time I went to Scotland? Probably with the BBC. That is ages ago. I remember doing a road show for Radio 1 in Scotland at Mossaballoch. That's where
it's not pronounced like that.
It is Mossaballoch. But you have to be very careful that you don't get it the other way round. Which
it's like Dunleary in Ireland, just outside Dublin. It's spelled very peculiarly. But Dunleary, very funny.
Steve Pereira, guys, just want to say thank you for the effort you're making to make everybody's day a lot more bearable. We've effectively confined to our houses now and gardens. Having something informative and entertaining makes it easier to deal with. Don't stop the humour, though. Thank you from Steve Pereira. So, on the humour front, I did this a couple of weeks ago, and then I mentioned it to you, and I left it out, and I thought, should we do it or not? And then Gemma yesterday, I don't know whether you know this, but after she'd recorded her piece, she spent another half an hour to 40 minutes giving me a production briefing, so some sort of production meeting, and how she thought we should be taking the show. So, do you remember that game we played, the wedding guest or squawking bird thing, where you had to work out the sound effect? There was a guest or a terrible laugh during the speeches. Well, Adnan Onart from the Fujicast Facebook group, he sent in a really entertaining piece that he'd read online about stoicism. And we talked about stoicism, I know. He said there's an unlikely stoic, Taylor Swift, who said a lot of very informed things in her time. And do you remember I asked you who Epictetus was? Or Epictetus?
Yes.
Yeah, Epictetus was a Greek Stoic philosopher, born a slave, lived in Rome till his banishment. He went to Greece for the rest of his life and philosophized. And it's fair to say that his teachings are used widely today. He said things like, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, which these days is very important. And then Taylor Swift, meanwhile, American pop star, who writes songs about her personal life, whose country music songs put her firmly on the map, because she was a country star, first of all, wasn't she?
She was, yeah. There's a good documentary about her online at the moment, and I think it's on Netflix. And Kanye West was really rude to her, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. What happened with all that? Are they friends again now?
I wouldn't have thought so. No? Sorry, I interrupted you, didn't I? But
no, not at all. No.
She won a Grammy, I think, when she was still a young,
16,
like she was 17 or 16. Yeah, 16. So she got up on stage about to take this award, and Kanye West got on the stage and basically said that Beyonce, I don't know, whoever he was going out with at the time, you shouldn't be winning this. Beyonce should be winning this, and then just got off the stage.
How rude!
Yeah, what a horrible thing to do. Yeah. Very egotistical.
Yeah. Sorry, did you say egotistical?
Egotistical.
Yeah, sorry. There was a little bit of digital dropout at the time that sounded very much like something else. Anyway, she said quite a few. So her teachings include, "You're still all over me like a wine-stained dress I can't wear anymore," which in these days, of course, is equally very important, along with Epictetus. So I've even got a little theme tune here. I've got an Epictetus or Swift theme tune here. I want you to work out who said what, okay? So since you're such an expert about Taylor Swift, who said, now, life is a ruthless game unless you play it good and you play it right? Who said that? Was that Epictetus or was that Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift.
I don't even know how you did that.
Yeah, it was. That's my...
I love having Taylor Swift talking to me.
I've only got one thing she says. That's all I can get in the public domain. If you want to be good, first believe you are bad. Who said that?
Epictetus.
Yes, he did.
Epictetus.
Yeah. Yes. I thought you might think that was... there's only 5 or 6 of them. Nothing is great suddenly. Who said that?
Epictetus.
Yeah.
Epictetus.
Yes. Classify your thoughts into 2 categories. Things I can change and things I cannot change.
Taylor West.
Taylor West?
Taylor Swift. Kanye West.
Who's Taylor West?
Enemy. Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift said that, do you think? Okay.
I don't even know how you did that.
She did, yes. Why do you walk as if you swallowed a ramrod?
Taylor Swift.
Actually,
Epictetus.
No.
I know, I couldn't believe that. I had to check that answer several times. Don't ever regret being honest.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
I don't even know how you did that.
There we go. So there we go.
I love Taylor Swift.
I like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, look what you made me do.
What? Oh, that was a song title. Keep up with it. Let's do one more question, then I've got a guest. This is from Jez Camilleri. Hi, Neil. Hi, Kev. My name's Jez, pronounced Jez. Yeah, I'm a first-time emailer to your fantastic podcast. I live in Sydney. Oh, I love Sydney. Have you ever been to Australia? Have I asked you this before?
No, I haven't. Yeah, you've asked me several times.
Sorry.
Every time the word Australia comes up, you ask me.
Yeah. It's just the most amazing place, and the sound of Australia. I think you're very, very lucky if you live in Australia. But anyway, so he said, forgive the long and rambling mail, but I promise there's a question in here. You might want to skip to it. Should we skip to it, or should we? Let's, by way of providing some background, I'm on the wrong side of 50. Careful, I'm not a pro shooter, having made $0 from my photography. I've accidentally shot one wedding for friends. How do you accidentally shoot a wedding? You just turn up and, I find myself accidentally shooting this.
Oh, yeah, I was going to the pub and I'm at a wedding. Look what happened.
I bounced between brands a couple of times. He's been with our brand we've just learned about. Nikon. And various others, and now he's with Fujifilm. I don't consider myself to be a particularly good photographer. The X-T3 is well overkill for my capabilities. However, I love it, and I love the Fujifilm philosophy. It's such a fun camera to use, though I'm still very much learning how to use it. Question then. While street photography interests me, I'm slightly put off firstly by my fear of photographing strangers, but more so because I don't often see something that I could turn into a decent enough photo. Sydney's not the ugliest city in the world, you're damn right there, but I struggle to take too many decent shots. What tricks do you use to turn what initially might look like a mundane scene into a great photo, whether the trucks be in taking the shot or in post-processing?
Well, I mean, what you have to remember is most people only show the pictures they're happy with, and for every one of them, there's many, many, many that they're not happy with. So that's important to remember. But I don't know. It's what interests you, because what interests you might be very different to what interests other people, and ultimately, unless it's for a paid client, you should only be taking pictures for what interests you. So if you like, I don't know, trains and planes and automobiles, take pictures of trains and planes and automobiles, and find your path.
I was very lucky to do a photo walk in Sydney with Marcus Anderson, the brilliant photojournalist and street photographer. And watching him actually work, and there's an episode, I can't remember the number, but there is an episode where we feature him in the Fujicast, right near the start, I think.
Yeah, I think it's like 3 or 4.
Yeah, something like that, right near the start. But I noticed the way that he worked, and he said, look, Sydney in particular is it's a contrast place. So the shadows, he said, they're fantastic. And he was taking pictures through shadows, with shadows, tiny slithers of light. He said, this city is brilliant for that. So maybe that's the way to think about that, Jez. And we went into the parks as well. And there's certain times where the parks have got another form of entertainment, like the famous orb spider. Have you heard of this orb spider?
Ooh, no, but it sounds horrible.
Absolutely huge. It's as big as a dustbin lid. And they weave these great big webs. And a friend of ours, actually, who was visiting in Sydney, went out for a jog in the morning. I don't know how he didn't see it. He said, I wasn't really looking. And I ran straight through 2 of these huge webs with orb spiders on them. He said, That's properly screaming on the floor. They're going to kill me. But of course they won't. I think they're fairly harmless, aren't they, orb spiders? But
no idea. No idea. But I don't know. Yeah.
Not perhaps
so Neil, have you ever been to Australia before?
Yeah.
You've never mentioned it.
You're allowed. Do you know? What the? You're allowed to talk about Tokyo, and I'm never allowed to talk about Australia. Oh, let's go for today's guest then. Keith Bernstein has been mentioned more than once or twice over the last couple of months. We've had some questions about working as a film set photographer of late as well. Remember, Keith was Nelson Mandela's personal photographer at one stage, but this is a trip back to just a segment from the longer interview that was episode 43 at the start of December, where we started to get an understanding of how a photographer on film sets work, what the job entails, and how it's been affected by social media. I'm intrigued to the stills, working on film sets and the still side of your work, because that's a complete departure from politics and photographing punk bands and all the other things you've done. Mm-hmm. Suddenly you find yourself in the world of hot lamps and Hollywood.
Yeah, you make it sound very quick, but it was a slower journey than that. So the photojournalism work began to decline, particularly as magazine and newspaper budgets began to be cut. That was one of the influences. And the other one was the attack on the Twin Towers. And I think that very shortly after that, one of the minor consequences of it was that access to a lot of institutions like prisons, government institutions and so on became a lot harder. And my work certainly began to decline. And I was kind of lost for a while as to what I was going to do. I obviously wasn't trained for anything else, didn't want to do anything else. And again, it's one of those kind of odd things that happens if you're freelance for long enough. I had a call out of the blue one day from a friend of mine who's a publicist for films. And she was referencing the work that I'd done in Southern Africa. She said that she was starting to work on a new project with a British director, and she thought I should come and meet him in South Africa and just show him some of the pictures that I'd taken. And the director was Anthony Minghella, and the film was the first adaptation of the number one ladies detective agency.
Not a bad way to start.
It's a fantastic way to start. And in a way, it kind of spoiled me because Anthony, as I said, was the director. The DP was Seamus McGarvey, who I've subsequently worked with. And both of those are absolutely fantastic people, both in the way that they are on set and in the quality of the work that they do. And that was the first film that I worked on. And I thought, well, from now on, every DP, every director is going to be the same as these two. And it's
they weren't.
It's a slight learning curve, yeah, but it was a good way to start.
What's the essential role of a stills photographer on set?
If you say to people that you're a landscape or wedding or fashion photographer, they think they have a good idea of what you do. If you say you do film stills, they generally have no idea. So you're there on film and TV productions. You're part of the camera department, and you're there to provide all the stills material that they're going to need to publicize the film in any format. And traditionally, that would have been the poster and maybe reviews in newspapers and magazines. That still applies. But obviously now, of course, there's a huge demand on social media. So Twitter and Facebook, Instagram accounts use the pictures a lot. And there are also a huge amount of material that the general public don't get to see because it's not released, but they form part of the archive that the film company and sometimes the particular directors want to have.
You mentioned Twitter and social media. How has that proliferation of media then, and if you like, the free exchange of images affected how you can make a living from this?
It's made an impact in that they use more pictures than they ever used before. Traditionally, a kind of a press kit. So a film studio might release a press kit, which might be 20 to 25 approved photographs, film stills, and they would go out to the magazines and newspapers. That still exists. But in addition to that, obviously, they're using a lot of social media stuff. It hasn't impacted me directly in the work that I do because that side of it is handled entirely by the publicity department of the studio that's distributing the film. So that's slightly out of my hands.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think that that's kind of impacted the sort of the amount of work that I get or the amount of work that I need to do.
I would imagine that the directors form a good bond of trust with the stills photographer. I mean, I know you've worked with Clint Eastwood a variety of 5 or 6 times, haven't you? 5 or 6 projects.
7 times, yeah.
7 times. Do they call for you individually? Did you find that that's what it became, that people would say, look, we trust Keith, we want Keith?
It varies. I mean, there are people that I've worked, so Clint Eastwood 7 times. There are certain actors who have particular requests. I've worked with Idris Elba 3 times, and certain producers that I go back to, or studios. So HBO, for example, and Warner Brothers will go back. But there's so much production being done now, particularly at a very high level of TV. That the demand has become almost kind of insatiable. But there are some people, as you say, who a big thing is that they want to trust you on set because there can't be any mistakes and you can't upset the actors because the time is so crucial and they're under so much pressure. And as long as they've got a kind of insurance of trust that you're not going to be in the way and you're not going to disturb anybody and you're going to deliver what they need in terms of the publicity, then yeah, they'll stick with you. But I would imagine that that's not particularly different from working for a particular ad agency.
I'm pleased you mentioned Idris Elba, actually, in Long Walk to Freedom, and that movie you worked on, because there was one particular moment where reality and movie world collide, where you photographed the two of them at totally different times in history. But there was a mirroring moment, the famous hand-on-cheek shot. Yeah,
it's one of those things that when it happens to you, your mind kind of connects two things that happened nearly 10 years apart. So in 1996, Mandela, as president, came to England on a state visit. I accompanied him, and it was a 3-day visit. He did all the things that presidents do. He met the Queen and went to Downing Street and so on. And his final engagement, he was an old man by now, his final engagement on that visit was a press conference in the basement of South Africa House. And I took a picture of him there, which is a really ordinary, nondescript picture. It's a headshot of him resting his head on his hand. It's the kind of press conference picture that thousands of people have taken, and it was never published because there was nothing exceptional about it. And I put it away in a box. The negatives went away in a box in the back of my office for about 10 years. And then we were shooting Long Walk to Freedom in South Africa, and there was a reenactment. Idris Elba had to do a reenactment of a really famous speech that Mandela gave just before the election on live TV, and it had all kinds of problems on that day with the filming. So what should have been a fairly easy scene to do had taken many hours to create because of some technical problems. And just before we started doing the take, Idris, who's an extremely patient and quiet actor, took exactly the same pose that Mandela had taken 10 years before in South Africa House, and I took the same picture, albeit in colour.
What was his reaction?
He was just slightly stunned. I put the two pictures side by side on an iPad and showed them to him, and he didn't say very much, but I think he was probably moved that because one of the things he was worried about, particularly with a big South African crew as we had, was trying to sort of successfully capture the spirit and the mood of Mandela. And, whatever reservations people have about the film, I think he did that really successfully.
I would agree with you. Across the years then, how has your work changed? I'm not really referring to kit or digital, though. That must have made a difference. Your enthusiasm hasn't changed. I've garnered that. But what about your work, your style, your photographic voice?
I don't think it's changed very much. I mean, I'm still looking at the same photographers that I looked at when I was kind of 15, 16, 17. I mean, along with other new ones, but I still go back to the same ones that I looked at. I don't think anything has changed. I mean, I still love, it's one of those kind of cliches that you see on those terrible posters in offices about, the worst day on a job that you love is better than the best day on a job that you hate, all that sort of nonsense. But I feel that. So I'm really just kind of thrilled that I am a photographer, that in this period I'm able to make a living at it. But when that stops, when people don't pay me for it anymore, I'll still take pictures. It won't make any difference.
Thanks to Keith Bernstein. Played it again really because we'd had a few questions recently about photographing on set and stuff. So I thought it might be worth rolling Keith out. He did actually. I dropped him an email the other day actually and said he'd come on again and have a chat. So here's a good thing to do. Send in some. Have you ever been interested in photographing on film sets, etc., or you've studied Keith's work and you've got some questions? Send me some questions. This would be a really nice idea, actually, and I can ask your questions to Keith when we have him on as a guest again, because he said he'd come on to the Daily Show. That might be a nice idea. There we go. Have you? You sound like you're going to go into question. Well,
no. I was just reading on the news about our lovely Health Secretary Matt Hancock, and he's saying, it's quite unbelievable that there's pictures of people in a park sunbathing and stuff.
I know. Over the weekend, it was stupid, wasn't it?
He's basically saying, look, if you do not understand this. Yeah. We will make it law that you cannot even walk your dog or go outside your house. You choose.
Yes.
And that's quite right. The anger needs to be there now. Bloody idiots.
Yeah, I know. Who was it the other day in the Facebook group? I probably shouldn't say his name because anyway, he's in the police force, and he was saying unbelievable. On the way to work, he even found some kids boasting that they were going to go into the park to make a YouTube video.
They should. What they should do is arrest them, take them, and I know they can't put them in prison or anything, but take them home and put one of those shackles around their feet and tie them to the frigging radiators. That's what I would do to them.
Back to Victorian times. But I agree with you. I mean, it's daft, isn't it? Yeah, if you're going out to exercise, we've even thought about, when we go to exercise now, because we're going to do a bike ride sometimes, is that we will go out just because there's 4 of us. There's the 2 kids and Sam, obviously. I cut her hair this morning, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah, crap cuts. She was panicking a lot. I wish I'd recorded it because I was going clip, 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 clip. And she was saying, no, that sounds like too much. It's coming off.
Some people, that's for some people that's quite a like a sensual, sexy thing, isn't it?
I don't think it was at all. No, she was there was nothing sexy about it. It was, can I cut that bit off?
How about no?
What about that bit up there?
How about no?
Oh, okay, then you're such a spoilsport. So we're going out actually 2 and 2, so we don't look like we're in some big family group, and because I feel personally quite guilty about it. And I know we're allowed to go out for exercise, but I feel guilty.
I think it's really only in places where there's no space that you can literally go somewhere where there's you don't see anybody else. I think that's kind of makes sense, but you shouldn't. People going out, and I saw it the other day when I was walking one of the dogs, and around the back of the Abbey here, there was a guy and a girl, young, teenagers.
Yep.
Let's just say they were getting to know each other very well. So they definitely weren't brother and sister, put it that way.
No.
And I'm like, what? I understand. I really understand if you're a 16-year-old girl or boy or whatever, and you can't see your boyfriend and stuff. It's tough, but it's tough for everybody. Stop it. Put your tongues in your mouth, stay home, watch the internet, and get a bloody life.
Or as our friend Scott would say,
Stop it.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. All right, well, on that note then, Kev, happy Monday. And we will join together tomorrow again.
Indeed.
But not biblically, obviously.
No. Bye-bye.
The Fujicast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.